Hello and welcome back to the channel of the damned. The damned gorgeous. So I've had a huge hiatus, haven't published for ages, and now I'm back due to a complete lack of public demand. What have I got for you this time? Well, I have got for you by Bruce Robinson, the director of Withnail I, They All Love Jack. So very quickly, just to go over things until now, I reviewed this book a while ago on my channel, and to be frank, it's to date it's the most popular video that I've published, which isn't saying much. But anyway, it was vastly appreciated in comparison to everything else. So I thought, why not go deeper into Jack the Ripper? This book is by Donald Rumbelow. I'm not going to review it again, don't worry. This is by an expert, we could say, in Jack the Ripper history and lore called Donald Rumbelow. And it's a very, very good kind of introduction to Jack the Ripper in general. Okay, so you don't have to be a kind of Ripperologist or a Jack the Ripper, Jack the Ripper, we could say, I don't know, fan is the wrong word. You don't have to be really heavily into Jack the Ripper to appreciate it. And it's a good kind of introductory book. Sorry, just turning around there. In contrast, They All Love Jack. It's a huge doorstopper of a book. As I said, it was written by Bruce Reynolds, the director of Withnail I. And in this book, this is one of those books where the author has a particular theory that he wants to propound. There are various kinds of Jack the Ripper book. There are so many of them. Jack the Ripper is a huge industry unto itself now. And you can find books on pretty much every aspect of Jack the Ripper. There are general books on Jack the Ripper like this one. There are books where people put forward their own theories on who Jack the Ripper was. This one, for example, or Patricia Cornwell, the author, has a couple of books, I think, where she puts forth her theories on who she thought Jack the Ripper was. You've got books featuring the crime, talking about the crime scenes. You've got at least one book where the author talks about the so-called canonical 5 victims of Jack the Ripper. So, Jack the Ripper is an absolutely huge industry now unto itself. So this book, as I just said, falls into the category of the author has a theory. Bruce Reynolds has a theory on who he thought Jack the Ripper was. And this book is all about explaining why he thinks this person was Jack the Ripper. Now, this isn't a thriller, so I can give you some basic information, okay? So, there's no spoilers here. He thinks that the murderer was a singer-composer called Michael Maybrick. Michael Maybrick was born in 1841, and he died in 1913. And this whole book essentially was written to put forward the idea why Bruce Reynolds thinks that Michael Maybrick was Jack the Ripper. So obviously he talks about he goes into detail about each of the murders, and there's a good amount of background here as well. Michael Maybrick, full disclosure, I had no idea who Michael Maybrick was before I read this book. He was a singer, as I say, he was a singer-composer. He was very, very, very successful. I think he was something of a celebrity, in Victorian times. So he was by no means an unknown. And basically, Bruce Reynolds thinks that Maybrick, he puts forward the case that Maybrick was the Ripper because Michael Maybrick was a Freemason, apparently. And according to Bruce Reynolds, the murder scenes, most of them anyway, contained Freemason symbology, symbols of Freemason symbology. Symbology, is that a word? The way the crime scenes were positioned, while the victim was positioned, the way certain elements of the crime scenes were set up were indicative of someone, according to Bruce Reynolds, who knew Freemason symbols and rituals and was kind of recreating them, reenacting them, representing them in the crime scenes. Not all of them, of course. For example, the murder of, I believe it was Elizabeth Stride, she's somewhat different. If you know your Ripper lore, she was somewhat different from the other victims because her throat was cut, but she wasn't mutilated. And this has led some people to believe that she wasn't a victim of Jack the Ripper at all. I mean, some people believe that she was a victim, but her throat was cut, but Jack the Ripper was disturbed before he could go any further. Other people believe that she was murdered by her boyfriend, that she shouldn't be considered a victim of Jack the Ripper, which leads us back to one of the main essential problem, because this book, okay, and other books are putting forward a solution to the mystery of who Jack the Ripper was. But the simple fact is, obviously, from fundamentally, we'll never know who Jack the Ripper was. It could be one of the suspects. It could be Michael Maybrick. It could be Walter Sickert, as put forward by Patricia Cornwell. But we'll never know who Jack the Ripper was. I mean, we can't even, it's not even agreed upon really how many victims Jack the Ripper had. I mean, there's the so-called canonical 5. Most people accept that Jack the Ripper had those 5 particular victims. Other people think that he killed as few as 3, which is still 3 too many. Some people think he killed as many as 11. Obviously, we'll never know. I mean, the state of police investigatory tools and tactics in those days was so inferior to what we have now. They didn't even have fingerprints, for God's sake. So, we'll never know who Jack the Ripper was. So basically, Bruce Reynolds puts forward the idea that Jack the Ripper was Michael Maybrick, because Michael Maybrick was a Mason, and so is the best suspect out of the available suspects that we know about. Also, the fact that Michael Maybrick, there was a town way outside of London, and Michael Maybrick was there at the time, something related to his job, I believe. He was performing or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But and there was a little boy called Johnny Gill, and he was horrifically murdered. And Michael Maybrick believes that, Bruce Thomas believes that Michael Maybrick was the killer because Michael Maybrick happened to be in the area. And this is a reinforcement, and this is another piece of evidence that reinforces the idea that Michael Maybrick was Jack the Ripper. I'm oversimplifying massively, so don't let that put you off. I mean, if you're interested in the Jack the Ripper case, have a read of this. Don't let this put you off, because I'm really oversimplifying what's in here. I read this book ages ago, and I'm really just giving you my impression and what I remember. So don't take this as gospel. Give it a read. It's definitely well worth reading. Personally speaking, because I know that you're dying to hear my personal opinion, and now I'm going to give it. So, buckle up, deep breath. Okay. So, personally, I think it's I would doubt that it would be Michael Maybrick, because Michael Maybrick, as it makes clear in the book, was at that time very much something of a celebrity, and obviously in those days, there wasn't the same kind of media there is today. If you're famous today, okay, everybody knows you, everybody sees your face and whatever. It wasn't like that in Victorian times, obviously. So, okay. But he was still a celebrity. And I would imagine he would have been pretty well to do, certainly in comparison to the people, the kind of people who would have been living and moving around in the East End at that time. So personally, I think he would have stood out, honestly. I mean, even if I wouldn't expect the majority of people to necessarily recognise him, but he would have been a gentleman. And I think that it would have been hard for somebody like that to move around the area without being noticed. As I said in my past video, maybe I'm wrong about that. I mean, as I've said before, maybe Jack the Ripper, he wore a really, really short micro skirt, high heels, a luminous boob tube. Maybe he rode around on a goat, maybe with a big cowboy hat on, firing off 6 guns and going, yeehaw, and like twirling a lasso about. I don't know. Maybe he did. And maybe he went unnoticed. Who can say? I wasn't there. But I'm just saying that I personally don't really subscribe to the idea that it was Michael Maybrick, although Bruce Reynolds does make, an interesting argument. The other thing I'm convinced as well is that whoever Jack the Ripper was must have been very, very, very familiar with the area. This is something that I think is indisputable. I think because, there were so many people out there hunting for Jack the Ripper after the first murder, or the first 2 murders. The way he kind of, appeared and disappeared like that, I think he would have had to have had a very, very, very intimate knowledge of the area. And I don't think someone just coming into the area would have been able to be so elusive. But maybe I'm wrong. Okay, so that's my review of this book, They All Love Jack by Bruce Reynolds. If I've made you curious and you decide to have a read of the book, do have a read and let me know in the comments down below what you thought of it, or if you agree or you disagree with anything I've said. Do please let me know. So, just to finish off, I want to thank everyone who's subscribed to my channel. I want to thank everyone who who watches my videos, and I really appreciate it. So, thank you, and see you in the next video. Bye.